Beside me right here is my go-to guitar setup, and it's by no means an amazing guitar setup, but it is definitely something that has served its purpose for quite a while in this studio. I've been using this setup for shootouts with microphones and preamps and all the kind of gear that you've seen in this channel for the last few years. And it's been with this really very rudimentary guitar setup, and I'll explain it really quickly. You've got right here, this is my Vox MV50 and my go-to distortion pedal. And then that paired with my cheap Tele Squire that I put some custom pickups on. And I've featured these in this channel for a long time, as I mentioned, and they all sound pretty great. The guitar sounds excellent with those custom pickups. The Vox MV50, whilst not a true Vox AC30, has that kind of sound to it, and I use it more as just a power amp for the speaker, and then I get all my distortion and saturation usually from distortion pedals if I need it. So the MV50 is really acting as just a power amplifier and just for some clean tones if I need it. However, I've been upgrading a lot of gear here for a while, and it's time that I probably invest some money and time in upgrading my guitar sound as well. So I've been doing a bunch of research into the best ways to start upgrading my guitar sound, and I've already upgraded the guitar itself. I've got some great pedals at my disposal, and the next obvious choice is a guitar amplifier. I've got some things coming soon on some DIY projects relating to guitar amps, but in the meantime, I've actually done a lot of research into speakers and how they might actually have a more significant effect on the tonality that I'm looking for in my guitar sound. And that makes sense. Speakers are just basically the opposite of a microphone, and quality of the driver mechanism of them can have a drastic effect on the tonality and the EQ response, and that's why I made my most recent purchase, this here. We're gonna open it up right now. Now, looking at this box, everyone should probably see where I'm going with this. Awesome. Alrighty. So this here is a Celestion Greenback. And what I'm intending to do with this is really change the characteristic of my combo amp setup that I'm running at the moment. Then eventually I'm gonna upgrade the head unit to a real Vox head DIY style, like we do on this channel all the time. But I really wanted to see whether using just my stock MV50 that I've got at the moment and replacing the speaker in my cheap old combo amp box will make a significant difference to my guitar tones in this studio. Now, what I can already tell you is the construction of this is very different to the stock standard Celestion that came with this cheap valve state Marshall combo box I've had for years. So hopefully this is gonna make a difference. So what we're gonna do today is a shootout and compare the stock speaker that I have in my setup versus the Celestion Greenback, and see, is it worth you upgrading the speakers in your guitar cabinets? So let's get into it. Cool. So I've got our Cubase session up. What I'm going to be doing is running some clean guitar chords, some just crunch tones from the Vox MV50, some heavy distortion tones, and then I'm going to swap the speaker out, and then we'll go through the same performances again, this time with the new amp, but with everything in the same mic placement. And whilst I'm thinking that, to make sure we get the same mic placement, so that is the first guitar layers all done and dusted. And what's crazy to me, even just tracking through my stock standard setup, is that I don't mind the guitar tones at all. I always seem to get an okay tone out of this setup. However, it's going to be really interesting now when we swap out speaker to hear the different tonalities that we get. So let's do that. In the back of my combo that I've been using is just this like generic 50 watt 4 ohm Celestion speaker. Still a Celestion speaker, but not an expensive one by any means. Let's have a look. So just a generic 4 ohm 50 watt speaker, the G12 50 AVT, 12 inch 50 watt generic speaker. So what we're going to do is pull that out, put the greenback in. So what I can tell you without a doubt is that the greenback, being 25 watts, weighs way more than this standard 50 watt. The weight difference is because there are more powerful magnets in the greenback, and we'll see once it gets in there. Let's reattach these terminals. All right, now the new speaker is actually in the box. It is a big weight difference. Like, oh, there's a real heft to that now, which is awesome. Let's plug it in. Now, to me, the breakup in the speaker seems to be more obvious. Like, I can hear the speaker starting to break apart a bit more, get a bit crunchier, especially when like really give it some. All right, so already I'm hearing some differences. The breakup of the amp sounds different, the lows of the amp sound different, and the highs, everything is quite different now, in a good way. But let's jump into the session, have a listen there.
Tomorrow for sure.
So if you can't tell, continuity problems here, change of clothes because it's the next day. I finished doing the guitar tests and then ran out of time to finish this video, but we're back in Cubase today. We have captured our clean guitars, our crunch guitars, and our distorted guitars. And what you can see here is that we've got the stock amp versus the greenback on each of these examples, and we're going to take a listen to the results. And before we have a quick listen, it is going to be very obvious, the difference in these results. It's awesome, actually, and we'll use our ears to listen to the differences, but then we can also use just FabFilter as a spectrum analyzer and look at the frequencies and explain what we're hearing. Let's get into it. I'm going to start actually with the heavy guitars first, because I think these are the most obvious. We'll start with the stock guitar amp. It's very obvious the difference, and I should clarify, I have gain matched these all within a dB. So they are completely gain matched. What a difference. It's actually so insane, the difference. We've got the same guitar going into the same distortion pedal with exactly the same settings on the distortion pedal, with the exact same settings on the amplifier unit. The only variable here is the speaker. So we've gone from our stock standard cheap Celestion speaker to a fully fledged 25 watt 8 ohm greenback that is known to have its sound. And let's have another listen, but this time I'll put on the spectrum analyzer and you can have a look what's going on. All right, stock Celestion here. This is the greenback. And did you catch the difference in the frequency analyzation there in Pro Q3? If not, let's have a look. I'm going to mute the tracks, and all we're going to do is have the stock and the Greenback running in mute, just so you can concentrate on the spectrum analyzer and we can kind of visualize what we were hearing. So first up, what you should notice is that the Greenback has a more pronounced roll off in the highs and an extended low frequency here. So we're getting more lows than the stock Celestion. They roll off a little bit earlier, but then the Celestion also pronounces more in the highs, in the high mids, around 3 kilohertz here, which gives it that harshness. And it kind of just, you can see here, it kind of just tilt EQs down almost. Like there's a bit of 500 here, but it just rolls kind of this way. Whereas the Greenback is kind of softer in the highs. All right, it's not as pronounced at 3 kilohertz. It's actually starts about 2, and then it starts to roll off from 2. So it doesn't have that same fizziness that you get around 4 kilohertz. They're both kind of scooped here around 1K, but then we get a bit more 700 hertz and a lot more around the 200 hertz range, and then a nice roll off after that. So you've got like this nice smooth mid-range in the Greenback and a nice roll off on the lows and highs, whereas this cheaper speaker here seems to have more extended highs, but then way less low production here. So that's kind of what we're hearing. Have one more listen, and then we'll listen to some crunch and some clean guitars. So let's start with the stock. And to me, like, it's night and day difference, obviously. I definitely like the characteristic of the distorted sound coming from the Greenback. What I'm finally hearing from this amp is the sound I've been chasing from miking up a 57 on a guitar amp. Whenever I've mic'd up this guitar amp with the 57, it always lacks that low mid, like 200, and I'll usually compensate with a ribbon mic or something like that to get those lows that I'm looking for. But with just a 57, the Greenback has the guitar tone I'm searching for. There's definitely that tone immediately there. And that's what we're always looking for, right? There's a different tool for the job. Anyway, let's listen to something with just some crunch to it. Once again, hearing those same tonal differences, and this kind of starts to prove that it's not a difference here in the distortion pedal. The crunch distortion is actually just coming from the MV50. There's no distortion pedal in this one. And we're hearing the same exact tonality shift where the stock Celestion sounds brighter in the highs, has less lows, and then the inverse is true for the Greenback. Now let's have a look at the frequency response. Once again, we can see a more pronounced 3.5 kilohertz, and then that kind of almost like a tilt shift off there. And then with the Greenback, we're getting a much neater kind of mid-range, much more pronounced low end and low mids, and then a smoother roll off here. And let's, once again, have a listen. Once again, just night and day difference. This time we've removed the distortion pedal from the test. So it is just my Fender going into the guitar amp, going into the speaker. So it kind of starts to show us that the only thing changing between these examples is the speaker, and we're getting that tonal shift change. So it's all just speaker difference, and it's night and day at this point. I think we're starting to see the same results. Now let's go to the stock clean guitar chords, just some simple open chords. Once again, getting that same tonal shift. I'm hearing that the lows are more pronounced in the greenback, the highs are a bit more brutally kind of sounding, a bit harsh in the stock Celestion. And once again, we can visualize that tilt shift in the speaker, in the cleans, that kind of bump and smoother mid-range in the greenback here, and much more pronounced low end, sharper roll off once again in the highs, same exact kind of thing going on there. Let's have another listen. Now in this example, it does look like we're getting more highs. That's just in those picked parts. We're getting the highs sticking out and poking out a little bit more, but when the chords are played, you know, we're getting that smoother mid-range. What are you guys hearing? Let me know in the comment sections down below. Do you think it is worth changing the speaker in your guitar cabinet? Are you maybe surprised as much as I am by the difference in tonality given from just a simple speaker change? This isn't an expensive thing to do. The greenback only cost me $225. If you have a affordable amplifier at home, a combo amp or otherwise, you could potentially do the same modification to your amp, getting a better guitar tone for a very affordable price. Maybe if you're looking at getting a new amp to change your tone, maybe you should first invest in getting a higher quality speaker. So the change in difference here reminds me a lot of the video I did when I changed the pickups in my Telecaster. And funnily enough, the change is similar because the technology change is similar. I'll put a link to the pickup video down below, but what we basically came across was the stock pickups in a guitar are cheap, kind of fake Alnico pickups. They're not real Alnico magnets. They are just metal poles with a magnet attached to them. And because that magnet setup is really cheap and nasty, you lose tone. And I think we're getting a similar thing happening here with our speaker. Behind a speaker is a large magnet. So this is the stock speaker that I took out of the guitar amp, and this here is a driver. And essentially all it is a gigantic magnet that then pushes the voice coil that moves the speaker. Okay, it's basically like a dynamic microphone in reverse. The quality of the speaker and its driver is all in the magnet, and the quality of a magnet can differ greatly. And then obviously on top of that, how well the voice coil is designed. The spider in here is quite different. If you're looking just here, this bit here is called the spider. I'm noticing that this is much smaller a spider than what's in the greenback. This magnet here in the driver is much lighter than what you have in the greenback, which means that there is a better quality magnet, which will create a better quality speaker sound. Now, I already noted when I changed the speaker, the weight difference was crazy, and that's maybe why we're getting better reproduction of the lows and highs and stuff like that. Anyway, let me know in the comment section what you think about this result, and what are you hearing? Do you guys want to see more videos like this? Hit me up in those comment sections down below, and stay tuned, because now that I have this free speaker, I'm going to do something pretty interesting with it in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.